I'm Clara Arokiasamy. I'm the coordinator. I founded the Global South Exchange Network, and I'm also the coordinator of it. I'll talk about it more, but rather than using the term Global South Exchange Network all the time, we shorten it to GSEN. So it makes it easier for all of us. Thank you. Thank you for being here and online as well. But before I start presenting, I'd like to clarify a couple of points. Firstly, I was hoping to have the lead. We have divided GSEN into the 5 regions that UNESCO and UCOMOS have. So the person who's leading for us on Africa is not here, Dr. Ishalosun Odiawu. She was going to co-present and give the African perspective today, but she's not here because she's got to go on a mission. Daytime job comes first. So she's off on a mission. And we looked around and we had some difficulty to find someone because everybody's busy, a huge region, country, and fewer people, a small pool. So they're busy. So I'm very grateful to have Dr. Theophilus Shittu here, who stepped into the breach rather late, and he's done a brilliant job, and you will hear him doing that brilliant job after me. I also wish to clarify that I'm speaking in my capacity as the coordinator of GSEN and not the president of UCOMOS. I'm also the president of UCOMOS UK. For the next 15 minutes, I'm going to, well, which one is it? Okay, there you go. It's better that way. Going to talk about, very briefly, the definition of Global South. What is Global South Exchange Network and its purpose and aspirations for the future, examples of work to date, and I'll pass it on to Theo, who would provide examples of South-South cooperation in Africa and lessons learned. Let's get confused with lots of things here, arrows here. UCOMOS International, I need to explain briefly what UCOMOS International is to understand how it plays a key role in the world in terms of conservation as the only single organization, non-governmental organization, who's concerned with conservation of heritage, intangible and tangible heritage. And I also will provide definition of Global South because lots of people talk about it now. It's becoming a very popular term, but what is it exactly and how we have used it in framing GSEN. What is UCOMOS? UCOMOS, as I said, it is a membership organization, works for conservation of monuments and sites and safeguarding of intangible and cultural heritage across the world. And only worldwide NGO dedicated to this. And they set up in 1965, post-war, rebuilding Europe, and to implement the Venice Charter, which was created 1964. UCOMOS is celebrating its 60 years this year. It's a global network. There are 12,000 members across the world, active in 150 countries, 117 national committees, because it's almost like a federal system. You have the center in Paris, which provides all the direction and guidance, and then you have national committees who comply with those code of practice and structures. But we are governed by our own legislation within each country. And I'm the president of the UK UCOMOS. 32 international scientific committee, and that is the USP of UCOMOS because they come from all over the world to create standards for conservation. So somebody from Africa or Asia is there when they can make it. If they can't, we have to see, they're consulted afterwards. But these are the scientific committees, and that is our USB. It's an international. And those standards are for ICOMOS members, but because they're good, that the private sector and the public sector borrow it, because the standards are good. It is also one of the formal advisors to UNESCO's World Heritage Committee on World Heritage Management, and the other two being IUCN and IPROG. Could you pass me my glass of water, please? Yeah. Now, going on to definition of Global South. What do we mean by Global South? It's not a new term. It's been around for a very long time. It's coined by Carl Oglesby. He wrote an article. He's a left-wing, around Vietnam War time. He was a left-wing person who was very active and felt that there wasn't an equality between the West and the North and the South, as he put it. So they're grouping the countries in Northern, Southern Hemisphere. No, not a reference to geographical grouping of countries, Northern and Southern Hemisphere, but instead they are characterized by developing, they're poor, underdeveloped countries, or third world countries, as they used to be called. They had low income, they were low income economy countries and countries that had experienced colonization. These terms were perceived to be derogatory at that time, and now, even now, and therefore the term, what is developing country, what is third world country, first world, second world, third world, it was all, very much layered and almost like a class system. Well, it was, I suppose. These terms were perceived to be derogatory, and therefore the terms Global South and Global North were adopted, making the reality not very palatable at that time and now, more acceptable. For the purpose of framing our network, we are using that definition. And our network refers to peoples and cultures originating in the following parts of the globe: Africa, Asia and Pacific, Arab and Latin America, Caribbean regions, and those from the Global South living in the Global North, like me, Atta, and others in this room. And you can see at the bottom, there are some countries excluded, like Asia Pacific, Israel, Japan, South Korea are excluded, and Oceania, excluding Australia and New Zealand. Now, moving on to what is GSEN and the structure briefly. It was launched in 2024, still a young network. 9 founding members. We represent all 5 UNESCO ICOMOS regions. The specialism represented is wide, and we come with a lot of experience, almost collectively over 100 years of experience between years. We are volunteers, we are committed, and the current membership is 40 and growing. Why did we set it up? I'm going to read this next section because it's important that I get it right. I founded GSEN in October 2023 and launched the network with 9 other fellow ICOMOS members from the Global South in February of 24, 17 months ago. The current membership stands at 40 and growing. Many are emerging professionals and interested or committed to developing a South-South cooperation for now and for the future. It is safe to say that we have not come across another similar network in our careers to date. Drawing on over 100 years of collective knowledge, experience, and conservation expertise, the founding members, through extensive discussions, identified 4 key objectives why a network like GSEN was needed. These relate to ensuring equal participation from the Global South in the creation of philosophies, instruments, charters, and guidelines so that they are truly international and take account of the extremely diverse needs of the world's majority population. 85% of the population live in the Global South. The objectives are also essential for creating local models which are respected by international agencies. This equitable approach is crucial to truly reflect global cultural agencies' international character and enhance their impact worldwide. You may have come across some of the sentiments I'm about to express in your work and studies, but there are many individuals, cultural educational agencies, who are yet to engage with them more robustly. Global North, for an internationally, hang on a minute, I've got the page right. Yes. Sorry. First objective. There had been a long-standing, the first objective, let me move my slides. I've gone too far. Yeah. The first objective relates to the relevance of existing models of heritage conservation for the South. There had been a long-standing concern that the international conventions, charters, policies for conservation and restoration produced by the international cultural agencies lacked appropriate cultural sensitivity for application in the Global South. The Venice Charter, adopted in 1964, which governs conservation, is a case in point. For over 6 decades, the Venice Charter has served as an international benchmark for heritage conservation. It was a response to the long-standing call, largely from Western Europe's architectural heritage movement, which included Pierre Gazzola et al. In the Global North, for an internationally accepted framework for defining ancient monuments and sites and the provision of guiding principles for their preservation and restoration. ICOMOS was founded in the following year to promote the Venice Charter, and Pierre Gazzola was its first president. Both the Charter and ICOMOS were framed within Western ideology about cultural heritage to undertake conservation in post-World War Europe. And subsequent conservation policies have been either framed within the Charter or have heavily borrowed from it. GSEN, like some practitioners in the Global South, regard this framing to have inevitably resulted in Eurocentric policies, structures, and processes. Consequently, they lack relevance for the conservation of heritage in the Global South, with diverse cultural, social, and spiritual values and expressions relating to place and nature, rather than just monuments. GSEN is also of the view that the ICOMOS regional instruments, such as the Japan's NARA document and Australia's Borough Charter, created to accommodate local and differing social, cultural, and spiritual values in conservation, while responding in small part to the complexities of wider Global South needs, have had limited impact. Although local experts are being trained in local value system through engagement with custodians who embody living heritages and cultural knowledge in the recent years, this development is not incorporated into the mainstream cultural discourse. Even efforts to address indigenous rights and/or rights-based approaches and cultural capacity building by ICOMOS and other cultural agencies are primarily led by experts from the Global North. Their attempts to empower the South is most of the time from an external point of view. The second is the need for collective voice on cultural heritage and self-representation in the South. The Global North enjoys significant influence within the international heritage conservation domain. This is largely due to the European origins of major organizations like the UN, ICROM, ICOM, and ICOMOS. They all are based in the North, resulting in the inevitable situation of providing Global North with a strong platform to project a confident and seemingly coordinated collective voice that champions its interests, even in time of crisis, but also has the confidence to assume authority to speak on behalf of grassroots communities and nations, including the homegrown professionals in the South. In contrast, the Global South's voice on heritage conservation has been diverse, multiple, and fragmented, and too often overshadowed by a colonial past and political realities. Few professionals in the South are members of these key international organizations, and connectivity between them, those who belong to the international network, is generally poor. This hinders the interrogation of the relevance of international instruments and policies for the Global South, where 85% of the population lives, scattered across huge geographical areas. This, in turn, prevents the gathering of comprehensive data to marshal compelling evidence-based arguments, to advocate for culturally sensitive approaches during times of peace and crisis. Furthermore, there are emerging issues concerning cultural heritage in the Global South that warrant greater attention and discussion among professionals from these regions, given their economic, societal, cultural, and political contexts. The third objective relates to the need to create Global South's own research, training, and development resources and repositories, and thereby remove the dependency on aid, archival, educational, and intellectual resources in the North. Much of the documentation and research and information on conservation of world heritage and other key aspects in the South, for example, the research interventions on ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Levant, Ethiopia, and other African, Asian, Latin American heritage, are owned by or held in universities, museums, and archives and heritage repositories in the Global North, a legacy of empire and colonialism. Unfortunately, this trend continues through development aid, post-conflict reconstruction support, research programs, PhD studies, and therefore disadvantages Global South scholars and institutions. This imbalance is exacerbated by the unequal access to digital technology, thus further empowering the control of protection, research, and interpretation of Global South's cultural heritage by the North. The need for cross-cutting issues with global implications, such as climate change, cultural diversity, rights-based approaches, sustainable development goals, should also change to consider the presence of the large Global South diaspora present in the North and the impact of this diaspora on cultural heritage in the North. These communities are critical links between the North and the South, which goes unrecognized. The fourth objective on the slide is the promotion of transversal South-South cultural cooperation for sustainable development and self-reliance. Here's the UN definition. It's a South-South cooperation. It's a process whereby two or more developing countries pursue their individual or shared national capacity development objectives through exchanges of knowledge, skills, resources, and technical know-how, and through regional, interregional collective actions, including partnerships involving governments, regional organizations, civil society, academia, private sector for their individual and or mutual benefit within and across regions. South-South cooperation is not a substitute for, but rather a complement to North-South cooperation. Despite the well-meaning intentions, many of the North-South collaboration are usually framed to meet governments' political foreign development criteria, like soft diplomacy, or to advance cultural or humanitarian organizations' agenda created and based in the West. You have British Council, for example, ALIPH, and other organizations we know that fund research and projects in the Global South. Consequently, they're time-limited, seasonal, used as tool to advance other goals originated in the North, like the Sustainable Development Goals. They're confined to one small community or area, not in response to national and regional strategies initiated by the recipient communities or civil society. This approach has a tendency to marginalize local cultural capacity, traditional knowledge and skills, and self-sustainability. Most of the joint working and collaborative arrangements or projects between the North and the South have largely been framed within a North-South cooperation perspective. There's also an overemphasis on capacity building, which imposes Western models of conservation of building, cultural landscape, and living traditions with selective and compliant partners in recipient countries. The ideas are produced in research labs in the North, and the South becomes a passive partner to meet partnership criteria, for example. Also, the last sentence in the United Nations statement should reassure those in the North who fear that a South-South collaboration would be divisive. We've often said, is this divide and rule? And I have said, I've come on to this, we need space to just get ourselves sorted and decide what we want. GSEN sees its transversal collaboration providing the much needed time and space for nations within and between regions in the South to explore locally generated solutions for their needs, which hitherto has not been available. The gradual reduction of development aid by many countries in the West over many years now, and the abrupt discontinuation of international aid by America recently has brought into sharp focus the South's dependency on the West and has made the need for self-reliance in the South even more urgent. Some of the Southern leaders and civil society call it a wake-up call and an opportunity to reevaluate developmental aid and self-sufficiency in the South. There are several high-level structures or examples already in place, and I've put 3 up there. CARICOM comprises 15 member states and 5 associate members made up of British overseas territories: Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Montserrat, the Turks, and Caicos Islands. These are states in the Americas and the Caribbean that are focused on the economic integration, cooperation, and the coordination and foreign policy for the region. You may have noticed CARICOM has taken a robust lead on the climate action and climate financing for island nations affected by natural disasters and reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, a legacy of colonialism. Both have cultural component. The African Union is made up of 55 member states, which represent all the countries in the African continent. The member states are divided into 5 geographical regions: Central, North, Southeast, West African states. Its published objectives state to rid the continent of the remaining vestiges of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity among African states, to coordinate, intensify cooperation for development, to safeguard the sovereignty, territorial integrity of member states, and to promote international cooperation within the framework of the United Nations. Culture falls into that, but it's not terribly visible. The recently formed BRICS is a group formed by 11 countries at the last count: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Iran. It serves as a political and diplomatic coordination forum for countries for the Global South and for coordination in the most diverse areas. BRICS partnership is based on 3 pillars of cooperation: political and security, economic and financial, cultural, and people-to-people exchanges. ASEAN in this Southeast Asia, comprising Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Adopted in 2008. Emphasis is on Central Asian and regional cooperation, regional peace and identity, peaceful settlements of disputes through dialogue and consultation and renunciation of aggression, human rights, social justice, multilateral trade, and regional integration of trade. So you get the picture, why there is such a divide and why the focus is now shifting to looking locally by the Global South countries, how they can create solutions for their own issues and their own building of the nations. What have we done to date? We have set up the network. It is new. And we have a leadership group which has got 5 people leading for each of the regions, the 5 regions in the world. We are raising awareness an influencing role, playing an influencing role in the global north and global south. We give talks, presentations, organizing lectures, panel presentations, one-to-one conversation. Connecting individuals, this is quite important. We connect individuals and groups within the 5 regions, and between them, this is our key purpose. We put people in touch when there are projects being created or when they want contacts and so forth. And as I call elders of the heritage world, we pass on knowledge, the capacity built by involving them in activities that GSEN organizes. We have the emerging professionals working with us who help us to run the network. Slide 9. Okay. Now we have the next slide. Let me get those papers out of the way. I wanted to give a couple of examples. South-South Cooperation, transversal collaboration by Africa's emerging professionals working group, and they are very active, and that it is as a model for other regions as well. Africa has, one of the things I said when I was speaking in this university the last time I was here in April, that the international population is dropping. The only country that has a rise in population is Africa. They are the future generation, the youth. Over 400 million youth population, 15 to 35 years. Youngest in the world, set to double by 2030. Key demography in stewardship of cultural heritage. How we are looking after them, how we are training them. The emerging professional group is a case, it's a good example. Very active, well organized, very, very hungry, very capable among the 5 ECOMOS regions. They represent 21 countries, including 2 from North Africa, involved in transversal collaboration between the states, NGOs sharing knowledge, know-how of African heritage. They also raise the profile of emerging African professionals who are determined to be involved and make them visible to other parts of the world. They organize seminars, publish newsletters in several languages about heritage. It's a model to be replicated and encouraged. The other example I'd like to cite here is this is in South America, Mexico. It's we have all these charters developed by UNESCO in the north. Increasingly, people are feeling maybe we need charters elsewhere to reflect our own need. And here's one. The CANICAP Charter is a civil society and universities creating morally responsible relationship with indigenous people. That's a premise of that piece of work. And it is a North-South indigenous community collaboration and co-creation. And the key issues explored in coming up with this CANICAP Charter: how can those who do not inhabit, own our space, be experts? And that is very important. We talk about community consultation, community engagement, and there's also a new term that's come on being, it just escapes me at the minute. So this is here, the people leading, the indigenous community leading. The academics were also indigenous themselves. So they understand, but nonetheless, there is a separation because they're academics and these are the communities. And the collaboration between the Mayan community in South America and in Mexico, and the three indigenous communities came together, and the American Native community. So you see, the 2 native communities have similarity. And one of the things we talk about, the transversal, South-South transversal cooperation, is that we have similar experiences, whether you're in Southeast Asia or whether you are in Syria, Iraq, or, we do have some joint experiences. So, we can share. We have never been able to share models. It's North-South models. So it's about developing our own, and share it with the North. There are some very good practices which the North would benefit. And then the other thing is reversing I like this. I mean, I've worked with this, the person who did this project, Aurelio. And he was talking about, they've othered us, now they are the others. I said, you mean reverse othering? And he said, yes, that's right, Clara, reverse othering. All this time, we were the others, the community said. Now, you are the others. You are outside of our community. So we tell you, we treat you as the others. I thought that was a good concept, which gives agency and power to the people you are researching or working with. And it's colonialism experts othered us, and we now keeping them out as they are the others. And then using Mayan methodologies, I can't pronounce this, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, skibal, dialogue and deep discussion to understand each other. We don't take here's a plan, we're going to consult you, but it was dialogue between people who were researchers and days and living together and that sort of dialogue. To understand each other first, trust, and then to reflect on the past centuries of colonialism and the impact on heritage for the extraction of cultural legacies, and make it into a charter for the current and future generations. So they had to discuss. There's so much pain and hurt, which they don't talk about. This was an opportunity, how the culture was, how it was destroyed, and how they're now putting together and forging forward and bringing back the culture. And as I said, it was co-created by two indigenous groups, one in the north and one in the south. So I thought that was quite an interesting way of managing, indigenous heritage, not managing, treating indigenous heritage, giving back the communities their agency, letting them take the lead. And that's what the Intangible Cultural Heritage Convention talks about. It's a bottom-up approach. So it ticks all the boxes. At the same time, we have another model. Yeah. So there's that is it. Let me see what I forgot. I think that's the last one I wanted to talk about. I think I'll stop there and hand over to Theo for him to give some hands-on experiences he's had in Africa, models of architecture, managing heritage and architecture. Over to you, Theo. I can't see you, but over to you anyway. Thank you for listening.
So good afternoon once again, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. My name is Theophilus Shittu. I'm a senior lecturer in architecture at the University of Northampton, and I also hold a UNESCO chair in Earth and Architecture, Building Culture and Sustainable Development. Clara, thank you very much for your very thorough presentation. You have made my work much more easier. And so my presentation title is Built Heritage Conservation Global South, Lesson from Experience. And just as I said, I'm not going to talk much about the Global South collaboration because Clara has already said that, so I'll just go straight to two case studies that I want to share with you, my experience from these two case studies. But first of all, I would just want to briefly reiterate that Global South-South cooperation is not about isolating the global north, but it's about South-South mutual collaboration for mutual benefit. It's about capacity development, specifically for positive change. And it's about knowledge exchange. It's about partnership. It's about collaboration. It's about Global South initiating project, funding it, and share it. So just as Clara said, reducing over-dependence on global north, particularly in terms of funding. So I'll stop that. I don't want to start repeating what Clara said. So my first case study is a program called African 2009. I'm sure probably some of us have heard of it, but if you are not, I'll just briefly explain what the program was all about. So it was a 12-year program that was designed to improve the management and conservation of built heritage and cultural landscape in sub-Saharan Africa. And the technical partners are the UNESCO World Heritage Center, ICROM, Gratin in France, École de Patrimoine Africain, School of African Heritage in Benin Republic, and the Center for Heritage Development in Africa in Kenya. Again, as you can see, though there are two African institutions, but the principal partners in all these things, the initiators, are from global north. The two African institutions who are drafting much more later to tick the box, kind of say, look, yes, and if you look at it, one from West Africa, from French-speaking country, the other one from the North East Africa, English-speaking country, kind of balance. So the program itself was initiated from the North. The plan was drawn from the global North, and the partners in from South, the institutions were drafted in as part of the implementation plan. The project was executed in 3 phases. The phase 1 was between 1998 and 2001, and the second phase between 2002 and 2005. The final phase, 2006 to 2009. And of course, the funding, as all of us would guess, the funding came from Global North. So one of the funders was Swedish International Development Agency, the Foreign Affairs Ministries of Norway, Italy, and Finland, as well as UNESCO, a World Heritage Fund, ICROM, and much later during the project, the African World Heritage Fund was created and was drafted into the whole project. So, as I said, the whole aim is to build capacity in area of built and cultural heritage conservation in sub-Saharan Africa. And also to develop better informed perception of the importance of cultural heritage, most especially built and cultural landscape, and to strengthen the networking in Africa cultural heritage among professionals and institutions. And to achieve these goals, first of all, regional trainings were organized, about 11 regional courses. Each of those courses about 3 months, and about 220 African professionals from 42 countries were involved in this training. And there was research and publications, which resulted in publication of about 6 books on heritage protection in Africa. There are also set of national and regional conferences, 17 regional and national seminars were constructed, and some selected sites, built and cultural heritage sites in different countries were selected for documentation, maintenance, management plan, conservation, and site promotion, depending on the needs of each of these sites. So about 37 projects were executed in 23 countries. And they also ensure that the participants, both individual professionals and the institutions, they set up a network so that after the project, there will be continuity. And the capacity in these two institutions, the École du Patrimoine in Benin Republic and that of located in Kenya, they were equipped with necessary facilities, and they ensure that all the trainings, they select people from this industry, from these institutions, to ensure that they carry on with this training and dissemination after the African 2009. And some of the major successes recorded from this program include 7 sites that were inscribed into the World Heritage. And one of these sites is the Osun Osogbo Sacred Grove in Nigeria. So, what really happened after African 2009? This is 16 years after. Yes, we can say that during the once the program was taking place, a lot of things happened, including ensuring that 7 new sites were inscribed in World Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage. But the truth is that due to the size of sub-Saharan Africa and the complexity, it's very difficult to measure at national level. So I'll focus on Nigeria. And I'm glad that there are many Nigerians in here. And I would like to know if maybe if you agree or disagree with me. So the individuals that benefited from this training in Nigeria, I can say that 2 of us are now in Global South. That is on personal level, but at national level, I don't think any follow-up on post-African 2009 took place in Nigeria. Yes, the knowledge and know-how is maybe been disseminated somehow, but a kind of post-program briefing to say, okay, we as Nigeria maybe, or institution in Nigeria said, okay, let's organize a conference as kind of post-African 2009. Nothing like that have taken place. So that brings us to the critical question of programs. A 12-year program that was set to design for us. And the question is this kind of program beneficial for us? We can say yes. But the truth is that it can only be beneficial if we take the initiative to implement, to really sit down, analyze, and critique what I've done, and to improve upon it. A 12-year program, I don't think that such a program will happen with this current situation, with the economic, global recess and everything, to be a long time for sub-Saharan Africa to benefit from such a program. But the truth is that we can do things on our own. We can do it ourselves in a way. We may not be able to bring together all the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but each country the world is global village now. In Nigeria, we can organize a program, we can build upon what we have, and then disseminate it. The same with other countries, and we'll be able to share knowledge. I'm presenting from Leicester, so technology has bring everybody together now. So it's not necessarily mean that we have to be together before we benefit from each other. So that brings me to the second project. So I'm not going to talk more about the technicality about the project. My main concern is what happened after the project. So between 2020 and 2023, I was involved, me and some other Nigerians were involved in a project, which is to conservation of a church, which is the oldest surviving church building in northern Nigeria. And ironically, it was funded. The funding agency from Global South, Global North. So, as I said, the project, the building is the oldest surviving church in northern Nigeria, and it was built in 1929. And for a very long time, it survived in its original shape until 2003, when, due to some reasons, a metal covering was introduced into the building, on the building, to protect it from perennial rain. And over time, due to lack of maintenance, which building of this type required, the building deteriorated, and we're able to secure funding to rehabilitate the church. And by the time we mobilized the site to start, there was change of guard, and they were able to get fund, and they wanted to rehabilitate it, to improve the whole compound. So as you can see, they wanted to pave the whole compound, and as they were about to start, we arrived. So what we did was to say, okay, you can pave the whole job, but 3 meters radius around the old building, leave it for us. We are going to do it in a way to safeguard the building. So what we did, that is the finished product, so, and the right of my screen. What we did was that after rehabilitation, we provide a permeable landscape with French drains, so that the rainwater will successfully driven away from the drain away from the building. Well, as I said, I'm not going to talk too much about the technicality. The picture speaks for itself. So after the project, I embarked on post project analysis, and what I did was to look at other buildings around Zaria, not necessarily in Wusasa, where the church belongs to. So, and I carry out some inventory. What you are seeing is the old palace or the Emir of Zaria, the exterior and the interior. As you can see, just like the church, the metal roof have been introduced, and there are a lot of cementitious render with decoration, though in Hausa traditional style, but using industry paint. So I carry out this inventory of the buildings within the palace and outside the palace, which you see. This is another building of historic importance. It's called Babangwani, and it's named after the famous architects, which historians have all come to the conclusion is one of the greatest architects and builder that Nigeria have ever produced. So this building was named after him, and it was built by his descendant. As a matter of fact, in Zaria, now there's an area where the descendant of the traditional art builders live, and it's called the area is called Angomagina. That is quarters of builders' quarters, something like that. So, so these are some of the inventory I took. I took of a story building that I recorded. On this slide is the is another building of significance, which is the Zaria Friday Mosque. The big the structure with the minaret is the mosque. I'm sure many of us will ask, what is traditional about this? Yes, the tradition is hidden inside. What happened is that the picture, the black and white picture, is that of the mosque in the 1960s, which was taken in 1960. So what happened is that, as you can see, the mosque was expanded, and what they did was so the area that I highlighted in red was demolished, and then the entire mosque was expanded. So they built in concrete around it, and then the traditional part of the mosque was encased with modern buildings. So from outside, you will see a modern mosque. And then from inside, when you go part of it, they still retain the old mosque inside. So I carry out a thorough inventory, which included photographs, major drawings, and I produced these drawings. And I'm glad I did that, because what happened after that was very, very, very unfortunate. And so I carried out this inventory April, May of 2023. By 11th of August, I received a call that the part of the mosque has collapsed. And unfortunately, it was fatal. 11 persons died because it collapsed when Friday mosque, and they were observing the Friday mosque. So people were inside, and 11 persons lost their lives, and a lot of people sustained severe degree of injury. So I started mobilizing from here in the UK, talking to people on what we can do, and talking to my contacts in Nigeria, including the Emirates, on what we can do. So we started mobilizing. But 2 months later, I received a call that the decision has been taken that the entire mosque will be demolished. And that was what really happened. So the entire mosque was demolished. But before it was demolished, I made sure that I recorded what really happened. So what actually happened, as I said, in the 1970s, the mosque was expanded. And as you saw from the previous photograph of the mosque before it collapsed, the new part of the structure was made in concrete. And as you can see in this picture, the guttering, the concrete gutters, some of them rested directly on the earth domes, on the collapsed section of the dome. And this structure was erected in the 70s. So it tells us that the structure itself, even though it was made of earth, it was really strong. But further inquiries, interviews, I was made to realize that not quite long before the unfortunate incident, solar panels were installed on the roof. So my conclusion, which may be right, may be wrong, was that probably as they were installing the roof, they installing the solar panel on the roof, they marched on the roof, on the metal roofing sheet, and as it rained, rain penetrated through those through the gap created by human intervention. And as we all know, once a structure is saturated, it will give way. So without this human intervention, we will say that this building, this old building that is almost 200 years old, will still have been existing. So it's the human intervention that caused the unfortunate incident, which really proved that our traditional architecture can still withstand the test of time if we respect um, um, the, the basic principles of design and construction. So this particular incident make us, me in particular, to reflect on even the conservation project that we did of that church, because part of the conservation work included rehabilitation of the building itself, included training, and we ensured that we involve all the various stakeholders. So thinking that by the training and retraining of people, they will be able to protect cultural heritage like the one that we just lost, like that of the mosques that we just lost. So, and this brings us to the question of the issue of the international conservation principle. Does it really fit Nigeria? And if yes, or if no, what is the way forward? So I went back to the stakeholders. First of all, I started with the emir. After commiserating with him, when I went back to Nigeria and commiserated with him and wanted to know why all the mosque was destroyed instead of restored. And I learned something very, very important, which really bring me made me think about what is really conservation. How do we carry out conservation? How do we protect the built heritage in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa? The argument from the emir is that, look, traditional house architecture is dynamic. It's not static. So their own understanding, or the emir understanding, is that, look, in the process of preserving the built heritage, there should be room for creativity in terms of bringing new materials, in terms of technique and so on. And it showed me this pic photographs. There are new structures within the palace. These are new patterns of design, which is completely a bit contrast. As you can see, these are straight edges, use of geometries, regular geometries, and so on and so forth, using cement, modern materials, and so on. So to the emir, that is a way to carry out, to move on with culture. Well, I made them understand that, yes, as a conservationist, we are not saying that structure should be static, because they argue that, look, if there is no intervention, let's say sub-Saharan Africa, we've been living on our own and we've been doing things without intervention of other culture. Are we going to remain static in terms of architecture? Definitely we'll move forward. Yes, I agree with that argument. I made them understand that, yes, that is valid argument. But the truth is that if we still need to protect, to preserve the built heritage, those old buildings that still survive, for number one reason, for posterity's sake, so that future generation will see, will learn, and they will not even make mistake. Because when you are able to understand how you all start your journey, you'll be able to move on. So if we preserve the same way those before us preserve this built heritage, these buildings, these traditional buildings, if we preserve it for the next generation, they will be able to see. But at the same time, we can build new structures. Creating new ideas so that other generation will see how we started, how we've improved, and they will be able to build on. So I went on to also discuss with traditional builders, because to me, they are the custodians of this heritage. And in Zaria, they are well organized because they still hold the traditional titles, builders titles. They have the the chief, they have the assistant, various traditional titles for the builders, and they still hold this heritage with high extent. And these traditional titles can only be it's true inheritance. So if you are not born into the traditional builder's family, you will not be able to inherit. You will not be able to take that title. So it's true inheritance. So they agree that yes, house architecture is dynamic, it's not static, but they say that for every in terms of conservation, they are still um, standing with the point that look, if you want to conserve traditional building, if you want to do any intervention on traditional building, you must use original materials and the traditional techniques that was used before it. However, if you have to make any innovation, or you have to create something new, you have to do it in line with the traditional practice, with respect to traditional practice, which I quite agree with them. But the dilemma is this: they know it, they are creative, but they have no decision, as the case with the mosques has proved. Because they were not involved in the decision making. It is the hierarchy, the top hierarchy that were involved. Even though the chief builder is part of the emir's entourage, he was not involved. Instead, the committee was set. They were Western trained architects and engineers. Although I was told that some of the people in the committee were against the demolition of the mosque, they were in favor of what we here in this meeting will favor, that is to restore the mosque. But what I heard is that there are the main issue is that the hierarchy sees it as an opportunity, number one, to be something bigger, but more importantly, for the emir, is an opportunity for his own dynasty to build a mosque for the emirate, because the old mosque was built by another ruling family, not his, because there are 3 ruling families in Zaria, and this historic mosque was not his own family. So now the emirship is now in his family, and this happens, so it's an opportunity. So you see the dilemma in conservation in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is just one. So even within Hausa setting, if you go to another Emirates, it's a different issue altogether. So what did I learn? What do we learn from this? Is that for us, because no matter what, yes, we respect culture, whether tangible or intangible, we respect it. But in respecting this, we have to protect the built heritage that we have. Otherwise, what will happen? We have nothing for future generation to learn from. So how can we do it? Is by making sure that we have a strong legislation. Is by ensuring that we have institutions and we empower them at the 3 tiers of government in Nigeria. Because what we have now, yes, we have the institutions, but it's at the federal level. So the impact is not felt at state and national level. And these are the things that we need to do. And going back to the global south, you can see from the UCH project, which Clara has also mentioned, we need to start looking inwards, particularly in terms of funding. The funding for the UCH project came from a German institution, English and this thing. And then I'm sure if we want to do another project of similar type too, now the first place that we come in mind are institutions from Global North. So we start thinking, and there are institutions in Global South that we need to, that we can look into. And there are, for example, one of them is China-African collaboration. China-African collaboration, we are the one that funded the Museum for African Civilization in Dakar. There are even UNESCO initiatives that promote South-South collaboration. For example, the virtual Pan-African University, which provide training and capacity building for heritage professionals in South-South, in Global South-South. There is also Global South-South Development Center. So there are a lot of institutions which we in Global South that have strong up, but the issue is that I won't say, I think it's more of a habit, particularly from us that are now in Global North, but are from Global South. So I think we need to start looking inwards. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.